And welcome back to the Daily Wrap, everybody. It's time for some political potluck. And veteran watchers of this show, this is our fifth one, by the way. You know the drill here. It's political potluck, where each of us brings a story to the party, just like bringing a dish of potluck to dinner. So let's start with you, Lisa. What do you got?
Well, the Graduate Center of the City University of New York has decreed that its staff can no longer refer to their students by the terms, the salutation, Mr. or Ms. Not only when speaking to them, but in mailing labels or invoices or bills or any form of written report. And they're saying that they're saying this is in compliance with, or that they are complying with Title IX, which is the federal law banning gender discrimination in government-funded educational programs. Is this political correctness going a little too far, or is it a good thing?
A little too far. AJ?
They left a little too far a mile back. And listen, I don't even have to put on the lawyer hat here to tell you this has nothing to do with Title IX, because there is no discrimination involved when you refer to somebody as Mr. or Mrs. This just goes back to the horror of political correctness gone awry. And we've seen this from a few years back. Even remember when actresses started being referred to as actors because it was considered offensive to call them actresses. And now there's this whole, even with the Super Bowl commercial, that you shouldn't say like a girl. The gender distinction is now considered a faux pas. It's considered offensive. And it's
well, they're asking also the administration to construct gender-neutral bathrooms as well.
Well, I think we should all stop for a second and get our panties out of a knot. And I think this is an interesting experiment. I really do. I mean, first of all, who really uses Mr. and Mrs. anymore, or Ms.?
I use Mr.
I don't think I even addressed my wedding invitations using salutations like that.
Well,
they're really kind of an old thing that people don't, especially upcoming generations, don't use anymore. And you know, when I think about my transgender or transitioning friends and how tough it can sometimes be to be in society, especially in college while you're trying to learn and get your education and decide what your identity is and who you are, you know, I'm in favor of trying it. You know, I'm not saying we all have to go with it. I think personal preference is a good idea because, like you were saying with actors and actresses, you know, that was a trend, and then women started to decide what their preference was, actor or actress, which am I? It could be either.
I think many times in colleges, though, professors use Mr. So-and-so, Mr. Concha, Mr.
When you don't
Ms.
know the name.
Yes, and that is used, and certainly on your mail, anything that's mailed to you
well, maybe they'll
would
get
be
to
Ms.
know each
or
other
Mr.
better. Maybe they'll develop nicknames for one
Yeah,
another.
well, either way, for the rest of the show, you'll prefer to be as Mr. Concha. Mr. C.
And I am Mr. Jenny. How about that?
Well,
No.
you don't really pull that off. Let's go to our next potluck, Ms. Delgado.
Speaking of gender issues, so being a Republican, I'm not really a Hillary Clinton fan, but I did like this tweet that she posted today where she was recommending the vaccinations and she hashtagged it, Grandmother Knows Best. I thought it was really powerful that she's kind of embracing her weakness as a strength, because we keep hearing how it's a weakness that she's going to be called a grandmother during the campaign. She'll be reminded of being a grandmother, and do we want a grandmother as president? And I love it that she kind of embraced the term and said, yeah, I'm a grandmother.
Or is she using it to kind of relate to
That's my question. What do you guys
people
think?
more,
Well, you know what? Nobody cares
possibly.
when a male politician talks about being a grandfather.
No,
Nobody
absolutely not.
gets suspicious of their motives. Nobody,
Really?
you know,
Did you
thinks that
see the
they're-
way John McCain was treated in 2008? He will
No.
drop dead literally if he gets into the White House about 3
True, but
minutes
that was
in.
more the health issue, not so much ageism.
What health issue did
Right,
that?
this is
Little-
more about,
Part.
you know, somebody asked Hillary Clinton recently, can you be president while you're a grandmother?
Someone asked
Right.
her.
Yes.
Yeah.
So, you know, there's a little bit of a gender thing there where it's like, oh, men are fathers and
sexism.
grandfathers, but women can't hold an office or do an important job and also be a family person.
Age won't be an issue because Ronald Reagan assumed office at an older age.
But
than-
as a
How old is
man,
he?
But as a man,
He
well,
was a few months
Yeah,
older
that's a
than
good
she
point,
would
AJ.
be.
she would be, exactly. I looked this up actually a couple days ago for no apparent reason. The average age,
he was really bored.
living age, life
You need a
expectancy is
hobby.
what I'm looking for here, is 81 for women now in the U.S. and it's 76 for men.
We live longer.
yeah.
It's just, it's a fact, and that's been the case for a while now.
Is that because
so-
you eat more seafood? I mean, why am I getting screwed out of 5
Less
years?
stress. Look at you.
I am.
You know, I think it just might be something in our DNA. I don't know.
Who knows? But I do love it that she's embracing it, and I'm not one to give her kudos easily. But this, I think, especially for this all-woman panel, I think we'd all agree that was kind of a woman's moment, that she kind of embraced this sexism that's been hurled against her about her age. And yes, I'm a grandmother, and grandmother knows best. And take that.
Republican
I liked it.
AJ Delgado
I
voting
like
for
that.
Hillary
I
Clinton in
like it.
2016.
Don't go that far. Let's not go crazy.
She's like, not voting, just liking the tweet.
Never voting, but yay on the tweet. I liked it.
All right, well
Good
done.
for her.
And we have to leave it there. But guess what? We have 2 more potluck extravagant, just scrupulent, I think is the word I'm looking for, dishes coming up next. So Jennifer and I, Mr. Jennifer, give us favorite stories of the day. So this is the Daily Wrap. It's only on Newsmax TV. And again, we thank you so much for joining us here, as I said, in our 5th show. We're having a lot of fun. We hope you're enjoying it as well. And we'll be back with more in just a moment. And welcome back to the show, everybody. This is still Political Potluck. And the gang and I are talking about our favorite stories of the day. Jenny, dazzle us.
Okay, so what makes the Daily Wrap so delicious is that we talk about things that you might not hear otherwise. So I would imagine nobody has heard that the first all-woman mosque has opened in the United States. It's out in Los Angeles. You may know that most mosques, about 2/3 of mosques in the world actually have a separator between men and women during prayers and services. It's called the Women's Mosque of America, and it strays away from this, as do some mosques around the world, like in China, Chile, India, but this is the first in America. So this gives women in a mosque the environment in which they can be empowered. They lead spiritually, they lead socially, they lead politically. And there's a quote in the LA Times, one of the founders saying, when women bring their young boys and they see women leading the prayer, they can initiate change as they grow up. And another woman who's involved in the mosque said that they really see this as indicative of reform. There's a movement for reform in Islam in America and around the world, and women are taking the lead. And so one of the women said, you know, this could be, we could get a female Luther out of this. So, you know, I find that really interesting that they're talking about this in this way. You know, so often we get caught up in the fact that we feel like Muslims aren't stepping up and educating the rest of us about the reality of their religion. You know, especially in times like today when we see another horrific beheading or burning this time. You know, we want to see people speaking up, and I really believe that Muslim women are going to be rising up in the future and really taking a role.
Not to detract from the feel-good nature of this story, Jenny, but what I get stuck on there is the fact that we're reminded yet again that in Islam, the only way you pray is through a partition and the division between men and women.
Not
in
everywhere.
regular
Orthodox
services.
Orthodox
in the
Jews
Orthodox Jewish
and a
Fair
lot of
enough.
religion, it's the same
Christian
thing.
traditions do as
I
well.
don't-
They
which
keep women,
Christians?
well, they don't let women be in leadership and keep them
Well,
in a
in
certain...
leadership is different, but when you have to divide the two during a prayer service, it reminds us of the differences that Islam still has a long way to go in its treatment of women. I guess
And
this
of course,
is a,
it's
a
not
good
every
step
mosque,
forward,
you know.
But that's what's highlighted for me instead of the feel-good nature of it.
Well,
is
I know
that's the only
somebody
way they
who's
can-
who's praying today right now, and his name is Warren Sapp. Mr. Sapp, one of the great defensive linemen of all time, played with the Raiders, but more notably with the Bucs, won a Super Bowl with them there, and then he gets inducted into the Hall of Fame. And in between, he's worked for the NFL Network and got endorsements with Budweiser, for instance. He does the Up for Whatever commercials. So Warren Sapp on cue at the Super Bowl, seems like somebody gets arrested every year, and he gets arrested for soliciting a prostitute. And this is just weeks after Greg Anthony, who works for ESPN, an analyst of basketball. He gets arrested as well for, you'll never guess, soliciting a prostitute. And we could go on as far as, and this is what my beef is about all of this. Warren Sapp has the perfect life. He works for the NFL Network, which means he only has to work basically 6 months out of the year and just give analysis on a sport that he knows like the back of his hand. And Budweiser's paying him 6 figures, 7 figures to be one of their spokespeople. And these people all think they're infallible. They think that this will just go on forever. And then you do something so stupid where you're Warren friggin' Sapp. And you are 300 pounds. Obviously you can't just hide in the shadows and
There's
say, hey, what are you
cameras
watching
everywhere
tonight?
these days. And the Super Bowl is the #1 night that they're out looking for sex trafficking, for prostitution, because it's known that that's a hub, the Super Bowl, for sex trafficking. So worst night ever to do it.
And not only that, everything that can be recorded, whether
Right.
it's
Yeah,
by cell phones, by
phones.
cameras, so you're so highly visible.
And they're
anywhere you go.
millionaires. If we could stop for a second and consider, wait, who are these guys that are just picking up the prostitute
And that's
on
a
the
great
stupidity
point,
is what
because
bothers
it's a
me.
power dynamic.
Right.
It's less about doing something bad and getting caught or not getting caught. They have the power and they know that they can use it. There's a power dynamic there. I think they don't think they'll get caught.
I'm not single, but
visibility.
the Tinder, is that free? You got to pay for a little
The
bit? for that?
Tinder.
The Tinder.
I don't know.
I've never used
I haven't
the
been on
Tinder.
it.
Because that,
I
from
think it's free.
my single friends that
think-
talk
I don't
about that,
know.
that's almost like prostitution the way that
Right,
works,
right.
except
Well,
it pretty much
yeah.
is outside of
And you
buying.
can just
Takes
flip
people
through
off.
them.
Yes,
You don't
yeah,
even have
like
to
light.
settle on
Exactly,
that.
and we'll explore that a little bit more, but I'm being told we have to get out. So who is the most admired woman in the world? A new poll by YouGov found out for us. You're never going to believe some of the names on here, and none, I don't believe, were solicited by Warren Sapp, which is a good thing. And by the way, Johnny Manziel, you win the Heisman Trophy.
Right.
The Browns think you're a savior, and then now you're in rehab. Boy, that's about the most predictable thing that I heard basically all week. So there you go. Anyway, you will find out next who our most admired women are. This is the Daily Wrap, and it's only on Newsmax TV.